churches across the United States and around the world. Thousands of people, I think, have been praying for me, and it's been very evident. I'm not really a morning person to jump up and do my devotions first thing in the morning. I tend to do my devotions late at night, and the verses that, had I been a morning person and read that morning of November 19th, I want to share with you right now. They come from Psalm 118. I'll read about 6 scattered verses here. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. I will not die, but live, and will proclaim what the Lord has done. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. The Lord is good, and he has made his light shine upon us. So, I don't know if I had read that verse, those verses in the morning, if I had not, maybe I wouldn't have left the house. I probably would have just, like so many of us, we read something, sometimes we just kind of skip over it. Maybe I would have missed it, but certainly it was very appropriate for that day. The 19th of November, the day before my birthday, pretty much like any other day in Guatemala. For those of you who don't know, Guatemala is the first country below Mexico. We all know where Mexico is. So if you keep going all the way through Mexico, then you come to Guatemala. And it was a regular morning, lots of traffic on the way to work. And so instead of going up the hill to work, I headed into town, did some shopping, got some supplies and materials that I need for that day. Returned, and then there was no traffic, so I just sped up the hill. Went to the ministry site called the Oasis, where we have 50 girls in residential care. I was able to turn in an expense report and get checks to go to the bank. So I went to the bank there in the little town called San Lucas. Came out of the bank, was not aware of anything out of the ordinary, but probably there was a gentleman who had been tipped off by the teller saying, this guy who's leaving the bank right now has a lot of money on him. And so, probably a good guy to follow. So I was followed to another ministry site in town. This is the site called the Lily of the Valley, and it's Casa Esther, where we house the girls who turn 18 to 21. They're not quite ready to make it on their own after they leave our residential care, but they're in this home. And so I went in, we're doing some construction there. I went in, talked to the construction workers. Had left my truck outside with all the money in it, and it was locked up and everything. I was probably in there for about 10 minutes, and when I came out, I was greeted by 2 men. They each had a gun. They had hoods pulled down over their faces, so I was not able to see them, or I wouldn't know who they are if I saw them today. Dar mi su dinero, which is give me your money, and I guess my wife has accused me of not being real quick to answer. Maybe some of you guys have the same problem. But anyway, I didn't say, yes, yes, here it is. I was probably just shocked that I was being wrong. And so, San Lucas is kind of cool, temperature-wise, and I had a flannel shirt on, and I could have inadvertently brushed the flannel shirt back to get my keys, which I usually have on a ring right here. I think that's maybe what scared these guys, because before I knew it, they were shooting at me. Many shots were fired, probably 7 or 8 shots. I think I was hit 4 times. And I just remember thinking, why are they shooting me? Because my intention was for sure to give them the money. I was hit once in this arm. I was hit in my forearm here. Another bullet hit me in my thigh. And then in all of this shooting, I must have turned because one bullet went in here and came out here. And the only bullet that hit bone was this one. This one missed the bone, this one missed the bone, this one missed the bone. And so this one, however, did quite a bit of damage. It got my stomach, my liver, the diaphragm around my lungs, hit my intestines. And so this one did a lot of damage. I remember yelling for help. I knew the construction guy was in there, and I yelled, and immediately he came. Now maybe my yelling for help scared the shooters, and they thought, maybe a big gun is coming out. Let's get out of here. So I think they must have jumped in their car and took off. I wasn't aware of what exactly they were doing, but I was laying in the arms of the construction worker, but this time I was on the ground. And the tia, that means aunt, who is a caregiver in the house that's on that property, she came running and immediately called 123, which is 911. And I could hear the ambulance coming. It was a little distance away, but I could hear it making its way the same route I had traveled after leaving the bank. The ambulance pulled up. The stretcher came out. I was awake for all of this. I do not remember getting on the stretcher, but once I was in the ambulance, then I was wide awake again. The driver, he turned to me and he said, "Where am I going to take you?" In other words, which hospital do you want to go to? I've been in relatively good health over the years, so hospitals aren't a big thing for us. I'm not spending too much time in them. So I started to say Herrera Yarandi, which is a nice hospital in Guatemala City, where I had been for a procedure a couple years earlier, and some of the missionaries there had their babies at this hospital, so it's kind of like the only one I knew about. Well, this is where the tia, the caregiver, injected herself into the whole situation. She just yelled out, "No, you can't. You have to take him to Roosevelt." To me, this was a real miracle that she was kind of brave enough to do that. Guatemala is a very macho society. The guy is in charge. Women, especially in public, don't challenge the man. And I, being a gringo in her country, it was even, I think, more imposing for her to insert herself. But she was very strong. You have to take him to Roosevelt. I turned to the driver and I said, "Take me to Roosevelt." And so I remember this big van in this little narrow street, just trying to get turned around. And I was like trying to hang on to this stretcher. Like, oh, it was terrible. At this point, I'll let you know that they did nothing for me medically. I had all these holes in me, and yet the helper for the driver, she didn't say, "Well, keep some pressure here," or "We'll put a tourniquet on my arm," or anything. They didn't do anything for me like that. But it so happens that I knew the lady who was the helper, like the paramedic. And what she didn't do for me medically, she did spiritually. She quickly called her pastor and her family. And I like to say this was the first prayer chain that got going. Within minutes of my being shot, there was a prayer chain going on. I learned later that morning was a special one for the mechanic that I use in Guatemala to repair vehicles. And for some reason, that morning, I was on the top of his list. All that morning, he had been praying for me. Not knowing exactly why, but just constantly the Lord was putting my name on his thoughts. And so he was praying for me that morning as well. So anyway, down the hill we go. Heavy traffic. I was looking out the back of the ambulance. I could see the cars had split, and we were like going right down the center line. Just driving fast. I'm trying to hang on. I imagine I was strapped on. It felt like I was going to fall off at any second. We got to the hospital, Roosevelt. Once again, I don't remember getting out and getting into the hospital. Once I was in the hospital, I was wide awake again. And then all of a sudden, the last thing I remember was my clothes being cut and ripped off. And they just got busy. Roosevelt is a hospital like, I should have checked with somebody what it would be like in New York City. It's the big county hospital, it's the city hospital, it's where there's not enough doctors, not enough beds, there's too many people. It's not the place we would choose to go. And yet, at this hospital, they do 6 to 12 gunshots a day. So they knew exactly what to do. There was no, I wonder what we should do with this guy. Immediately, they just knew what to do. We've heard, too, that it was not a doctor, it was a resident. And this guy saved my life. When we got there, I had lost half of my blood. I had no blood pressure, very little, if any. And it was a rough first day for Sarah. The mission chose not to call her, but they sent the director's wife and several of the missionary ladies there to get Sarah and bring her to the hospital, where she was. By the time she got there, I was in surgery already, and she was waiting outside with everybody else to hear any updates and news. It was pretty touch and go. Of course, I wasn't aware of it. I was, as people gathered there, people from church, people from the school that Jared goes to, other missionaries that we knew, there got to be quite a crowd. And a lot of support, for Sarah. I think it was great that these people were there for her. And finally Sarah was able to come in and see me. At this time I had had the first operation, and I was in a coma with tubes and stuff coming out of me all over the place. It was pretty touch and go. I'm sure her good friends stayed with her, and they were able to spend the night there on a bench. She was able to come and see me, I guess, 5 minutes every hour. At one time during this, the nurse was trying to check my blood pressure and pump it up and nothing, pump it up, nothing, pump it up, nothing. And she said to Sarah, "You're going to have to leave, we're going to have to do something here." And so I had many transfusions. I think I had 10 in all. So basically all my blood was replaced. And it was decided then that the next morning, with the help of all those people who showed up, that I should be transferred to another hospital called Central Medical. And this was a very nice hospital, a very good place for me to be. I have 3 boys that are older than Jared, and they're all registered nurses in Chicago. And I think their thought was, "Dad, you should be out of medevac heading north somewhere, but not staying in Guatemala." So anyway, our son Scott was able to come that very next day. We got there very quickly and was right away able to see the situation and realize, no, this is a good spot for Doug to be. This is a good spot for Dad. And so that was a great relief, I think, to Sarah and the other kids, to Emily, that she could know that I was in a spot that was going to be good for me. So The next day I rested. I was in a coma. They put me in a coma for 1 week, just to rest, So the next day was a day of rest, and the next day they did another operation. I was out for all of this. As I was coming out of the coma, that's when they did the surgery on my arm. Before I came out, I thought, well, rather than wake him up, put him back on and do the arm surgery. They did that, so I have a titanium plate in my arm, screwed together to try to hold this bone together. As I was coming out of the surgery, I guess I was in intensive care there. Sometimes you're a little goofy. Not me, but some other people are goofy. So when I woke up and I saw this thing laying next to me, I said, I have a baby. Come and see my, you want to come and see my baby? I guess I was inviting nurses and anyone to see my baby? I have a baby. But anyway, intensive care was a very intense time for me. It was hard. I think the medications that you're on do stuff to you, but I remember that I didn't sleep well. I couldn't sleep. It was hard to. When I'd shut my eyes, the whole room would kind of change. I'd close my eyes, and all you people disappeared, and the room was full of other people. And I didn't like it. I didn't want to close my eyes. It was hard. So finally, under the encouragement of Sarah, she says, well, let's look into this a little slower here. Close your eyes and tell me what you see. Okay, the room is full of people. I said, I think they're Guatemalans. They have a darker skin, and I think they are Guatemalans, yeah. And I would see mostly men, but some families, some children. And so Sarah said, well, what are they doing? I said, I think they're praying. And I closed my eyes again, and I think they're praying for me. And so it was at this point that I really, really believed that these were Guatemalan angels. They were very present for the couple of weeks I was in intensive care. And just knowing that they were there and praying for me turned out to be an encouragement, and I was then able to rest. But because at first I did not want to close my eyes. It was so. Oh. One day Sarah was rubbing my feet at the end of the bed, and I said, Sarah, do you feel it? Do you sense it? And when I asked her if she sensed that, she said, no, but what if I do this? And I said, oh, the angels, they just float up, and when you quit goofing around, they float right back down. So the angels were a very real thing for us there. They had my back. They were covering me. Basically, I was on the mend and healing. Things were going good. After about a month in the hospital, it was now between Christmas and New Year's. It was discussed, and we thought, well, I could just as well be healing at home as laying here, getting better and better. I was thinking, oh, my bed's going to be so nice, and my shower's going to be wonderful. So we were allowed to go home. We went home, spent the first night on the sofa in the living room. The bedroom was upstairs. But then the next day we had several visitors with their families. It was a good time. In the middle of this visit, I was just hit with a cold sweat and very, very nauseous. It lasted like for 10 minutes, just intense. Went away. Another 10 minutes of this. I'd never felt anything like it before. Went away, and then another time. So it happened 3 times there in the living room. The visitors were there. Everyone was there just knowing something was going on, but we didn't know what. So then, after the 3rd time, wow, I think I feel okay. So finished up our visit. They went home. I turned to Jared and I said, now it's time to go upstairs to my bed. So I kind of hung myself over the Jared's back, and Sarah was behind us, and we started up the stairs. And I'd take a couple of steps, and Jared said, are you okay, Dad? Are you okay? Yeah, keep going, keep going. So we went all the way up to the top, and when I got to the top, I could not breathe. And like for 45 minutes, obviously I was breathing, but I never got enough breath to like think I was gaining anything. It was terrible. I thought I was going to die. I thought, this is it. And then all of a sudden, I was fine. I felt fine again. I said, you know what's next? The shower. Couldn't wait to get in the shower. The shower almost killed me again. It was terrible. I could hardly get back to the bed. I just thought, in my mind, I had pictured how wonderful it was going to be. So anyway, spent a miserable night. It was not good. It wasn't at all like I had dreamed. Next morning, I scooted down the stairs, one at a time, got downstairs. I said, Sarah, made a big mistake here. We got to go back to the hospital. Something's not right. This is not working. So we made some calls, and we had been in communication with the doctor before this, when I was feeling the cold sweats. So we were in communication, and he said, okay, come on back in. So we went in, got to the hospital. I only been gone 2 days. They didn't even know who I was. Who are you? All my records had already been moved into the closet, making room for more records. Anyway, it was coming back to the hospital was a hard thing. I thought I was doing so well and getting better, and we still weren't sure really what was wrong with me, what other problem was causing this. And that's when our son Brian, one of the nurses, he said, well, what about your Coumadin, your blood thinner that you've been on? And we said, no, we were sent home without the blood thinner. We had been on it for a long time, and now it was time to be off of it. But he said, well, that might be something. So Sarah tried to alert the doctors and the residents outside, because remember, it was between Christmas and New Year's, and everyone was gone who had seniority. It was the rookies who were there, So nothing was happening, and she was trying, and we're trying to communicate. We got the wrong doctor, this and this and this. And finally, Sarah said, well, I've done what I can. It's now midnight, 1 o'clock. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to pray. We were assured that something was going to happen. Next morning, I got a phone call from Sarah, and it was, have they done anything? Anything happened? I said, no, I just woke up. Well, you got to make some noise. So then I grabbed that little button. You sit in the hospital, you got that little button by your bed. Started pushing that button, the room's filling up with people, And I said, I think I've very likely could have had a blood clot. Well, when they heard that, then things started to happen quick. I was taken out for an ultrasound and x-rays, and sure enough, I had 2 huge clots, one in each of my lungs. And they felt I was a good candidate to put a filter in my inferior vena cava. As your blood returns from your legs in smaller veins, it all combines into a big one back in here somewhere. And they put a filter in there to stop any more big ones. It allows little stuff to go through, but the big ones are stopped. And so I have a filter in right now. But anyway, it was pretty depressing to be back at the hospital. God had been doing so many wonderful things, and I was pretty down. So when the ladies would come to do physical therapy, they would be moving my arms and rolling me around and moving my legs and all this kind of stuff. And I think the lady could tell I was kind of despondent. I wasn't my same old cheery self, So she's in the middle of our therapy, she stopped, and she said, she said, Mr. Johnson, you're a Christian, right? I said, yeah, and I'm a Christian, and I'm supposed to pray for you right now. He said, the Lord has told me I should pray for you. So she stopped, and she prayed. She prayed hard for like 10 minutes. And this is another one of those cases where in Guatemalan society it probably wouldn't happen, but she was responsive and listened to God and did what God told her to do. And so that was wonderful. It was now afternoon. A few minutes later, in comes my tray with my food, my supper. The same lady would bring me my food every day, so we got to know each other, and this was now supper time, and with the food, she had a napkin with, and she gave it to Sarah, and said, this is for Doug, this is for Doug. On this napkin are written out Bible verses. All these Bible verses for me. And just what I needed, just what I needed to hear. And I tell you these two incidences because a lot of times I think we maybe sense God's telling us to do something. You know, maybe it's help that lady at the grocery line with the two little kids and screaming what you could, or whatever it is. And we make so many excuses not to help or not to say a word for the Lord. But these two ladies were very, very influential and very helpful for me to help me to rechange my thinking of being down in that and realizing what God was doing for me. So I should speed up here probably. A few more things. As I was then now healing and getting better, one day I heard the doctors talking, the guy who had put the filter in and the surgeon who had done the stuff inside. And I think they thought I was sleeping because they said, he's still here. He's still here. You know, it's probably not what you tell your patient. But I heard these guys, and what I took that to mean was that here these doctors are well-trained. They knew what they were doing. They had performed surgery, and yet when they were done doing the surgery, they really didn't think it was going to be enough. All of this stuff was going on. But Dr. Fernandez, who we've really grown to love, he said, you know, Doug, you're here for, there must be a reason why you're still here. And we don't feel he's a Christian. I think he believes there's a God, but he doesn't have a personal relationship with Christ. So we've shared with him, we've talked with him, we've given him books, and he's given us books to read, and we're a very open relationship. But anyway, so for a while then, I'd open my eyes real slow in the morning, and I'd say, I'm still here. I'm still here, you know. Same room, nothing's changed. So, yeah. Continue to heal and get better and better, and finally coming home about another month later, the first Sunday back at church, you got to hear this. I was, by the time Sunday school and church, and then you had coffee, I was just dead tired. Just, come on, Sarah, let's go home. I'm thinking, I was sitting on a chair, you know, and I was kind of just eyes closed and just, oh. And I open my eyes, and in front of me are two little feet. Two little feet, about a 4 or 5-year-old boy who was my buddy. We knew each other from before I got shot. And he's looking at me like this. He's looking at me, and just a couple times, just intent. We're just nose to nose, you know, just right there. And his mommy comes up behind him and says, do you know, Mr. Johnson, that this little guy has prayed for you every day since you got shot. He will not go to bed until he prays for you. And I thought, oh my, this is, to me, you know, I don't know why this happened and why the doctor would say there must be something you're supposed to do. I don't know. I think of myself as just an ordinary guy. Nothing so special about me. Just we're all in this. God deals with each of us in different ways. it's such a privilege to be in this situation. I just think of that little boy and how his faith was increased, and just who knows what that will do in his life as he's growing up. God does answer prayer. Here's Doug right in front of me. After 10, 11 weeks, he hadn't seen me, but every day he prayed. And there I was. So, I don't know. This morning I just want to encourage you to be obedient to God. If God's telling you to do something, then we should do it. And I certainly don't think that I'm special. I'm just an ordinary guy who has had this experience happen to me. Like I read this morning, I will not die, I will live, and I will proclaim this news to others. And so it's a privilege to share with you. It's in Guatemala, I often, and this happens to me, I'll be talking to someone and someone will pass by and they'll overhear what's talking. Kids, this is Doug. Come and see Doug. Now, I don't even know these people, and they've been praying for me. It's just, I don't know, it's just amazing to me how the family, the Christian family, the family of God just comes together and pulls together and supports. And I felt so supported, so loved by you, by this church, magnified hundreds of times. It's just, like, I don't know what to say. It's just, I don't know that I have something big to do yet. Maybe I do. But maybe it's simply just to share what God has done for me. And so I thank you for this morning and for the privilege to talk with you. I probably missed something that you're just dying to ask me, but maybe we should save that till after. Find me, I want to talk to you if you want to talk to me. So once again, thank you for everything and for the privilege of being here.